So there is this story, and honestly, I don't even care if it's apocryphal, because it is just too perfect.
Oh, I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah, Philip Pullman shares it right at the beginning of his introduction to the text we're looking at today. And I want you, listening right now, to just close your eyes for a second and picture this.
Set the scene.
Right, so we are in an 18th century manor house. It's drafty, the floors are creaky, and there's this roaring fire trying to fight off the English damp.
Classic Gothic setting.
Exactly. And sitting in this high-backed velvet chair is an old country squire. He's got a gouty foot propped up on a stool, maybe a glass of heavy port balancing precariously on the arm of his chair.
Just a real salt-of-the-earth type.
Yeah, this man is not a scholar. He's never read the classics. He's a man of the earth, probably cares way more about fox hunting than he does about poetry.
It's such a vivid image.
Yeah.
And it really sets the scene for exactly the kind of prejudice people have against this text today, right? Yet
Yeah.
it's only for academics sitting in ivory towers.
Right.
But this squire is about to prove everyone wrong.
So, someone is reading a poem aloud to him by the fire. And at first, maybe he's dozing off, just listening to the rhythm of the verse. But then he starts listening, like really listening.
The narrative hooks him.
Yeah. The story gets intense. There are battles, there's rebellion, high-stakes politics, speeches that sound like they belong in a heated session of parliament. And suddenly, this old squire slams his fist down on the arm of his chair, spilling the port, presumably, and shouts, "By God, I know not what the outcome may be, but this Lucifer is a damned fine fellow, and I hope he may win."
Which is famously the exact reaction the author Philip Pullman says he has to the text, too.
Totally.
And honestly, it's the reaction that has terrified theologians and literary critics for over 300 years.
And that is exactly where we are starting today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are exploring what is perhaps the most audacious, complex, and surprisingly modern poem in the English language.
John Milton's Paradise Lost.
Exactly. And we aren't just reading it as some dusty classic that you have to slog through for a university grade.
No, not at all.
We are looking at it through the lens of Philip Pullman, the author of His Dark Materials, who argues that this isn't a dry Sunday school lesson. It's a thriller.
It's a war story.
Right, a war story, and ultimately, it's a massive psychological drama about the necessity of growing up.
It is a massive project. I mean, Milton isn't just writing a story here. He is attempting to rewrite the operating system of the Western mind.
Wow, yeah.
He's taking the most foundational myth of the culture, the Genesis story, and exploding it into a full-blown cinematic universe.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. We want to understand how Milton took a story that takes up, what, maybe a page or two in the Bible?
Barely that. Adam, Eve, the apple, the snake, boom, done.
Right. And he turns it into this 12-book epic about free will, political rebellion, and what Pullman calls the necessity of falling.
Yes.
We're going to see how he fills in the gaps, gives the devil the absolute best lines, and effectively invents the modern anti-hero.
And to really grasp that, we have to start with the sheer nerve of John Milton.
The audacity is just off the charts, isn't it?
It really is. Pullman points this out right at the start of his introduction. Think about how most writers open an epic. They might invoke a muse, or say, I'm going to tell you a tale about a hero, or here's a tragedy of a king.
Yeah, standard stuff.
But Milton opens book one by explicitly stating his goal is to assert eternal providence and justify the ways of God to men.
That is such a confident opener. He's not just telling a story, he's explaining the cosmic order.
Right.
He literally claims he's going to pursue things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. That is a massive flex for a blind civil servant living in 17th century London.
It is, and you really have to remember the context, which Pullman alludes to heavily. Milton had just seen his entire political reality crushed.
Right, he was a revolutionary.
Exactly. He was the Secretary for Foreign Tongues under Oliver Cromwell. He actively supported the overthrow and the execution of King Charles I. He truly believed they were building a new Republic of God on earth.
And then the Restoration happens.
The monarchy returns. The king's son comes back to the throne. Milton was briefly imprisoned. He was stripped of his status. He was completely blind, and he was totally defeated.
Yeah.
And from that position of absolute political and personal defeat, he sits down and decides to write a poem explaining why God allows bad things to happen.
It's almost like he's writing it to convince himself, or just to process that profound political trauma.
Definitely.
But Pullman argues that if you're going to make a claim that big justifying God to humanity, you had better deliver a story that actually keeps people reading. You can't just write a dry theological treatise.
No, nobody wants to read that.
Right. And the way Milton delivers is by realizing a fundamental truth about storytelling. Perfection is boring.
Exactly. A story about obedience is incredibly dull. If you have a story about people sitting around being perfectly happy and doing exactly what they're told, well, there's no conflict there.
There's no narrative drive.
Right. To make this work, he needed a protagonist who drives the action. He needed friction. And for the first 2 books of this poem, that protagonist isn't God. It isn't Adam. It is unequivocally Satan.
Let's unpack that, because that is the damn fine fellow that Country Squire was rooting for. The structure of this thing is entirely cinematic. We don't start in the Garden of Eden with the birds and the bees and the perfect sunshine.
We start in the aftermath of a massive war.
In medias res, right into the middle of things.
We start in hell. And Pullman notes that Milton is absolutely obsessed with atmosphere. He doesn't just say, oh, it was hot. He describes hell as a place of darkness visible.
Oh, I love that phrase so much. Darkness visible. It's such a terrifying, paradoxical image.
It's a sensory contradiction, and Milton relies on those heavily. He wants you to feel the impossibility of this place. The flames give off no actual light. They only serve to make the darkness perceivable. It's a dungeon, horrible. And lying on this burning lake are the rebel angels, completely defeated. They've just been thrown out of heaven. They are stunned, rolling in the fire, confused, hurt, and psychologically shattered.
Yeah.
And this is exactly where we see Satan not as a villain yet, but as a leader.
Pullman makes a really great point here. He says landscapes aren't enough for a story. Something has to happen. You can have the best set design in the world, the coolest CGI burning lake, but you need an actor to step onto the stage.
And Satan makes it happen.
He does. He rallies the troops. He gives these speeches that are just, they're electric. They sound exactly like a political candidate who's just lost a brutal election but completely refuses to concede. And now he's rallying his base for a coup.
They are the speeches of a revolutionary, a defeated general refusing to surrender. There are lines here that have seeped into our cultural consciousness so deeply we forget they even come from Milton.
Oh, absolutely.
Satan looks around this horrible dungeon, this place of literal, eternal torture, and says, the mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven.
That sounds like modern self-help.
It really does.
It's pure stoicism. The whole mindset is everything culture. It's incredibly empowering on the surface. It's the idea that your external circumstances don't define you. Your internal reaction does.
It is, but in this specific context, it's also deeply tragic and defiant. Pullman notes the double edge here.
Right.
On one hand, it's heroic. Satan is asserting that his will is stronger than his environment. He is refusing to let God dictate his internal reality. But on the other hand, it's completely delusional.
Because he's in hell.
Exactly. He is in hell. He can't actually turn it into heaven just by thinking really hard about it. But the sheer force of his will is magnetic to the reader. And then he drops the ultimate manifesto of the anti-hero. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
That is the line. That's the one that makes you want to bang your chair arm like the squire. It's the ultimate rejection of authority. It's the teenager slamming the bedroom door but scaled up to a cosmic level.
Yeah.
It's the core idea that freedom, even freedom in absolute misery, is better than comfortable servitude.
And this is exactly why the romantic poets, people like William Blake and Percy Shelley, and later critics like Pullman, find themselves so drawn to Satan. In these early books, he represents energy, action, and the refusal to submit to tyranny.
He's incredibly charismatic.
He's the underdog. And we love an underdog, even if the underdog is the literal devil.
Right.
But Milton doesn't just leave us with a monologue. He gives us a full-on political drama.
Right, the Parliament of Devils. This scene in Book 2 is fantastic. They build this massive palace, Pandemonium, which literally translates to all demons, and they basically hold a war council. It feels like a scene from Game of Thrones or a heated, fractured parliamentary debate. You have these very distinct personalities arguing about foreign policy. It's not just a mindless mob. It's a functioning political entity.
It's a masterclass in rhetoric. Pullman highlights how distinct the characters are in this debate. First, you have Moloch.
Moloch is the hawk, right? The warmonger.
Yes. He is the irrational warrior. He's furious. His argument is essentially, let's attack heaven again right now. We're already in hell. It literally cannot get any worse. Let's just burn it all down.
Yeah.
He wants open war, even if it means total annihilation. He would rather cease to exist entirely than exist in a state of defeat. He's the embodiment of blind rage and nihilism.
Then you have Belial, and Belial feels like the slick politician who creates a subcommittee just to avoid actually solving the problem. He's the intellectual coward of the group.
Belial is the smooth talker. Milton describes him as false and hollow, but his tongue dropped manna. He's that guy who can make the worst argument seem like the better one.
The spin doctor.
Exactly. And he advocates for doing nothing. He says, look, God is all-powerful. If we attack, he might figure out a way to make us cease to exist entirely. Right now, we're miserable, yes, but we exist. Let's just get used to it.
Just adapt to the fire.
Right. He says maybe the fire won't feel so hot after a few eons. He advocates for ignoble ease.
The path of least resistance. Just get comfortable with the misery, don't rock the boat. And then there's Mammon.
The materialist. He looks at the gold and the gems hidden in the soil of hell, because even hell has natural resources. And he says, why go back to heaven and sing hymns? That was boring anyway.
Yeah, we hated the hymns.
Right. Let's build an empire here. Let's make hell magnificent. We have the money. We have the labor.
It's the capitalist solution. Build a new economy. Ignore the spiritual defeat and just focus on material wealth. We can build a really nice casino down here in the Brimstone.
Exactly.
But then Beelzebub steps up. And Beelzebub is basically Satan's mouthpiece, right? He's the vice president, ensuring the president's actual agenda gets passed by the floor.
Precisely. He plays the crowd masterfully.
Yeah.
He systematically shuts down the others. He says, war is suicide, so Moloch is wrong. Peace is impossible, so Belial is dreaming. Building an empire is a joke because we are still in a prison, so Mammon is deluded.
Right.
But then he proposes the third way. He mentions a rumor, a prophecy about a new world being created and a new race called man.
The soft target.
Exactly. He says, we can't hurt God directly. He's too strong. His defenses are too good. But we can hurt his pets. We can corrupt this new favorite creation.
Jeez.
It's a terrorist strategy, really. If you can't hit the government or the military, you hit the civilians. You ruin the thing the enemy loves. You spoil his new toy.
And this sets the entire plot in motion. Satan volunteers to go alone to find this new world. It's framed exactly like a classic hero's journey. He fights through chaos. He braves the elements. If you didn't know he was the literal embodiment of evil, you would be cheering for him.
And the end of book 2 gives us this incredible cinematic cliffhanger that Pullman just loves. Satan has crossed chaos, this unformed messy matter between worlds, and he pauses.
Yeah.
He sees the Empyrean heaven, the city of God, shining in the distance. But hanging off it, connected by a golden chain, is the new world, Earth.
Pullman describes it, quoting Milton, as in bigness as a star of smallest magnitude close by the moon.
It's so fragile. It's beautiful. And as Pullman notes, it's exactly like a Hitchcock movie. We see the bomb under the table. We see this beautiful, fragile little world, ignorant of the malice moving towards it.
That tension is just palpable. You are genuinely worried for this little hanging world. But then we turn the page to book 3, and the tone shifts completely. We go from the dark, dynamic, thrilling action of hell to, well, heaven.
And for many readers, and certainly for Pullman, this is where the energy really drops. Hell is dynamic. Heaven is incredibly static.
This is where that famous quote from William Blake comes in, right? It's almost required reading when you talk about Paradise Lost.
He really is. Blake famously wrote that Milton was of the devil's party without knowing it. He meant that when Milton writes about Satan, the verse is energetic, fiery, and passionate. It crackles with life. But when he writes about God, it feels constrained. In fetters, as Blake said, it feels dutiful rather than genuinely inspired.
Pullman is pretty harsh on God the Father in his introduction. He points out that in book 3, God is sitting on his throne. He sees Satan coming toward Earth. He knows exactly what's going to happen, and he immediately starts making excuses.
It is a very strange narrative choice by Milton. God essentially points at Satan and says to the Son, look, there he goes. He's going to corrupt man. And it's not my fault.
Yeah.
He literally asks, whose fault? Whose but his own, regarding humanity's future fall. Pullman compares this to a petulant child, or maybe a bureaucrat trying to cover his tracks before the accident has even officially happened. He's remarkably defensive.
It's almost like God is reading the terms and conditions of free will aloud just to make sure he's legally covered. Like, I made them free. I gave them the ability to stand, but they are free to fall. It's not my fault if they break the rules.
It makes God seem weirdly insecure. And that is the theological trap Milton falls into here. If you try to make God a literal character in a drama, he has to speak.
Yeah.
And if he speaks, he has to explain himself.
Right.
And the moment God explains himself, He sounds diminished. He sounds like a lawyer arguing a case rather than the ineffable, all-powerful creator of the universe.
It creates this massive narrative tension where the reader finds the villain way more compelling than the supreme deity. However, structurally, this book is important because it formally introduces the Son of God. While the Father is all justice and legalism, the Son offers himself as a ransom. He brings the mercy.
Right, it sets up the cosmic balance. The Father says they will die because they will break the rule, and the Son says, I will die for them. It's almost a good cop, bad cop routine of theology.
Yeah.
But narratively, we are all just eager to get back to the action on Earth.
So we have the setup. Satan is the encroaching malice, God is the distant authority, and the Son is the Redeemer. Now we move to the middle chunk of the poem, books 4 through 8. This is where the genre shifts yet again. We go from a political thriller to a deep psychological drama. Satan finally lands on Earth.
And this is where Satan becomes truly complex as a character. In hell, he was a rhetorical hero. He was performing for his troops. He had an audience to play to.
Right.
But on Earth, he's alone. When he's alone, the mask slips. In Book 4, he has this famous soliloquy that begins, "Me miserable. Which way shall I fly? Infinite wrath and infinite despair."
And that devastating line, which way I fly is hell, myself am hell.
That is the psychological pivot point of the whole epic. It's absolutely brilliant. He realizes he can't escape hell by simply leaving the physical location. Hell isn't a place with geographic coordinates. It's a state of mind.
Wow.
It's his internal state of being. It's his permanent separation from good. He actually admits that he's miserable. He admits that God actually treated him well. He admits his rebellion was born purely out of pride.
He almost repents, doesn't he? There is a real moment of hesitation.
He considers it. He looks at the sun. He looks at the beauty of Earth, and he wavers. He thinks, maybe I could just go back and apologize.
Yeah.
But then he realizes that even if he repented, his pride wouldn't let him submit for long. He knows he would just rebel all over again. He knows himself too well, so he hardens his heart. He says, "Evil be thou my good." It's a deeply tragic choice. He commits to destruction because he cannot have creation.
It's the mindset of the ultimate destroyer. If I can't be loved, I will be feared. If I can't build something beautiful, I will break whatever is beautiful.
Exactly. And then we get the scene where he spies on Adam and Eve for the first time. It's very voyeuristic. Milton compares him to a wolf watching shepherds or a thief climbing into a rich man's garden. But there's a moment Pullman highlights that is fascinating. Satan watches Adam and Eve, and for a moment, he is stupidly good.
Stupidly good.
That's the exact phrase Milton uses. For a split second, Satan is so awed by their innocence, their beauty, and their obvious love for each other that his malice is temporarily neutralized. He completely forgets he's a devil. He's just an admirer of beauty. He stands there totally disarmed.
That makes him so much more tragic than a cartoon villain. He can still see the good. He just can't keep it.
Right. The envy creeps right back in. He sees them happy, and he remembers he is permanently damned. And that envy fuels his resolve. He says, effectively, you two are having a great time now, but wait until I'm done with you. He converts his appreciation of their beauty into a primary motive for destroying it.
Now, before we get to the actual fall, Milton gives us a massive backstory dump. The angel Raphael comes down to have lunch with Adam and Eve and basically warns them. He's like, hey, watch out. There's a crazy fallen angel loose in your garden.
And Pullman just loves the gastrotheology here.
Gastrotheology.
Haha, yes. Milton's obsessed with physical details. He is a materialist in a very specific way. He doesn't want everything in heaven to be purely metaphorical. So when Raphael sits down to eat with Adam and Eve, Milton spends actual verse time explaining that angels actually eat. They digest. They turn physical food into spiritual substance. Pullman finds this hilarious, but it grounds this high cosmic epic in weirdly specific physical laws.
Like, do angels go to the bathroom? Milton almost goes there.
He really skirts the edge of it. He wants to show that matter is good, that bodies are good. Angels aren't just invisible ghosts. They have substance. But the main point of Raphael's visit is to tell the story of the war in heaven. This is the flashback. And it is wild. It's basically Star Wars.
It really is. We see the rebellion's origin. Satan is jealous because God promotes the son to a higher rank. It's workplace envy on a cosmic scale. And we meet Abdiel.
I love Abdiel. Among the faithless, faithful only he.
He's the one guy in Satan's camp who stands up during the secret rebellion meeting and says, this is wrong, and then just walks out. He has to walk through a massive crowd of jeering rebels. It's the ultimate act of moral courage.
It shows that falling wasn't inevitable for the angels. Abdiel had the exact same choice Satan had, and he chose differently. But then the war starts, and Milton goes all out here. Angels are throwing literal mountains at each other.
Literally plucking up mountains by the roots and throwing them across the sky.
Yes. And Satan, being the great innovator, invents gunpowder and cannons.
Wait, Satan invented cannons?
In Milton's version, yes. The bad guys use technology and artillery. The good guys use nature, the mountains. It's a stalemate until the Son of God comes in on his chariot and basically ends the war single-handedly, driving the rebels right over the edge of heaven.
So Adam and Eve know all this. Raphael has told them, look, this guy, Satan, is out there. He's jealous. He's dangerous. Stay close to God. They have the intel. They aren't going into this blind.
They do. They are not ignorant. And that is what makes Book 9, the absolute center of the narrative, so intensely tragic. This is the fall. And Pullman frames this not just as a religious sin, but as a domestic tragedy. It starts with a marital argument.
It does. It's the morning of the fall. Eve wakes up and says, Adam, the garden is getting way too overgrown. We need to divide and conquer. You go that way, I'll go this way. We'll get way more work done.
It sounds like a very modern argument about workplace efficiency versus quality time. And Adam says, I don't think that's a good idea. We are safer together. Remember the warning. There is a literal demon hunting us.
But Eve pushes back. And her argument is really interesting here. She essentially says, what is the point of our virtue if it can't be tested? If I have to stay in your pocket constantly to be good, then I'm not really good, I'm just sheltered.
It's the argument for true independence. She's challenging the patriarchy of the garden.
Yeah.
She wants to be trusted on her own merits.
Yeah.
She implies that Adam is being controlling.
Right.
And Adam, who Milton actually calls domestic Adam here, yields. He doesn't want to force her. He loves her, and he wants her to be happy and feel trusted. So he lets her go.
And that is the fatal mistake. She's alone, and Satan finds her.
And he's in the form of the serpent. Now, the seduction scene is an absolute masterclass in rhetoric. The snake doesn't just slither up and say, hey, eat the apple. He uses logic. He uses flattery. He acts like a trained sophist.
What's his pitch exactly? Break it down.
First, flattery. He tells her, you are a goddess. You should be worshipped by angels, not just stuck here with one man. He strokes her ego beautifully. But then the hook. He says, look at me. I'm a snake. I ate from this specific tree. And look what happened. I can speak. I have reason. I moved up the chain of being from a dumb beast to something human-like.
Okay, that is a really strong argument. He's offering her empirical evidence.
Right. The implication is obvious. If a snake can become like a human by eating this, imagine what a human can become. You'll become like God. It's a compelling argument about upward mobility. Don't you want to be more than you are?
That directly appeals to her desire for growth, for status.
And then he twists the knife regarding God. He asks her, why did God forbid this? Is it because he wants to keep you low? Is he envious of your potential? He frames the prohibition as an act of suppression by a jealous tyrant. He basically gaslights her into thinking God is the enemy of her personal progress.
And Eve eats. Milton writes, Earth felt the wound. It's a cosmic catastrophe. But what happens next is just so painfully human. Eve eats, and she feels great. She feels intoxicated. And then she thinks, maybe I shouldn't tell Adam. If I keep this power to myself, I can be his superior. Or at least finally his equal.
It's a power play. But then she changes her mind. And why did she change her mind?
Jealousy. Pure jealousy. She thinks, wait, if I die from eating this, God will just make Adam another Eve, and he'll be perfectly happy with her. She cannot bear the thought of him with another woman, so she decides he has to eat too. She loves him too much to let him live without her.
That is so dark. It's basically, if I go down, you're coming with me. It's a murder-suicide pact disguised as deep romance.
And when she brings the fruit to Adam, this is easily the most heartbreaking moment of the poem. Adam looks at her. He sees the garland of flowers drop from his hand. He sees she's ruined. He knows exactly what has happened. He is not deceived by the snake's logic.
He knows it's a trap. Milton is completely clear on this point. Adam eats against his better knowledge. He looks at Eve and says, how can I live without thee? He consciously chooses human love over obedience to God. He decides that an immortal life with God isn't worth it if he has to be alone.
That is the romantic hero move. It's Jack and Rose on the Titanic. He's choosing to sink with her, but the immediate aftermath isn't romantic at all.
No, not even a little. It turns toxic immediately. They eat and they get drunk on the fruit. They have lustful, broken sex. And then they wake up with a massive hangover of shame.
Yeah.
They realize they're naked. They frantically cover themselves. And then they spend the rest of the afternoon just screaming at each other. You shouldn't have gone. Well, you shouldn't have let me go.
It is such a realistic portrayal of a marriage falling apart under intense stress.
It really is. The tree paradise is lost before they even get kicked out of the physical garden.
Hmm.
The paradise was their relationship, their harmony, their trust, and that's completely gone. They were deeply alienated from each other.
So the fall has happened. Now we're in book 10, the consequences. And this isn't just about Adam and Eve fighting. The whole universe breaks.
It's structural damage to reality itself. We see sin and death, who are these allegorical characters, Satan's actual offspring, literally building a massive physical bridge from hell through chaos to earth. They're colonizing the new world. It's an invasive species event on a cosmic scale.
And nature shifts. God orders the angels to literally tilt the earth on its axis.
Yes, to introduce the seasons. Before this, it was just eternal spring. Now we get pinching cold and scorching heat. The animals start hunting and eating each other. The perfect harmony of nature is replaced by predation. The physics of the world become openly hostile to humans.
Meanwhile, Satan goes back to hell to take his victory lap. He thinks he's won the war. He enters pandemonium in disguise, waits for the dramatic moment, and reveals himself.
This is a great scene. He gives this triumphant speech, "I did it. I ruined them with an apple. I won." He expects thunderous applause. He expects a hero's welcome.
And what does he actually get?
A dismal, universal hiss.
That is such a visceral, horrifying image.
It's God's immediate punishment.
Ugh.
Satan and all the fallen angels in the room are suddenly transformed into serpents. They lose their limbs, they lose their voices. They're just writhing, hissing snakes on the floor.
Wow.
And to add insult to injury, a tree appears in the hall with fruit that looks exactly like the apple. They try to eat it out of desperate hunger, but it turns to dry ash in their mouths.
It's a grotesque, almost medieval punishment. The glamorous, silver-tongued anti-hero is reduced to a literal hissing snake eating dust on the floor.
Exactly. Milton aggressively strips him of his dignity. He wants to make absolutely sure we don't admire Satan too much by the end. He reduces him to a mindless beast. But back on Earth, the tragedy is much more quiet. Adam and Eve are in total despair. They actually contemplate suicide.
Yeah, they think about just ending it.
They think, if we have children, they're just going to be born into this curse. Maybe we should just end the human race right here, peacefully.
But they don't. And interestingly, it's Eve who leads the reconciliation.
Yes. Eve falls at Adam's feet and says, "Forsake me not." She initiates the repentance. She actively stops the blame game. They decide to stop fighting each other and face the dark future together. It is the first real act of post-fall heroism.
Which brings us to the final section, books 11 and 12. They have to leave. The party is officially over.
The Archangel Michael arrives. He's essentially the bouncer. He tells them they have to go. But before they leave, he takes Adam up a high hill and shows him a vision of the future.
The history lesson.
It's a really grim catalog. Cain and Abel, the flood, endless wars, the rise of empires, tyranny. It's a history of human suffering. It reads like the newspaper headlines of the last 5,000 years. But there's a vital thread of redemption.
Right.
Michael explains that eventually a seed, the Christ figure, will come to restore things.
But this leads to the core philosophical idea that Pullman really latches onto in his introduction, the felix culpa, the fortunate fall.
This is the crucial takeaway from the entire epic. Pullman strongly argues that innocence is not the same thing as wisdom. Adam and Eve in the garden were innocent, yes, but they were also essentially children. They were sheltered.
They didn't know good from evil because they had never seen evil.
Exactly. You cannot grow up if you stay in the nursery forever. You have to leave home. You have to make mistakes. You have to experience pain and consequence. Pullman sees the fall not as a terrible tragedy to be mourned, but as the painful, necessary first step toward actual human consciousness.
So innocence is basically overrated.
Innocence is fragile. It shatters the second it's touched. Virtue that has been tested by fire, that is resilient. By falling, Adam and Eve gain the ability to actively choose good rather than just mechanically doing it because they don't know any better. They gain true agency. They become adults.
And that brings us to the final lines of the poem, which I honestly think are some of the most beautiful, melancholy lines in all of English literature.
They are heartbreakingly beautiful. Adam and Eve are being escorted out of the eastern gate of Eden. The flaming sword is waving behind them, blocking the way back forever. They are crying. Milton writes, "Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon.
And then,
The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They hand in hand with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way."
the world was all before them. That sounds, I don't know, it sounds hopeful.
It's a very mixed chord.
Yeah.
They have lost paradise. They are solitary in the sense that they are permanently separated from God's direct, visible presence, but they are hand in hand.
Yeah.
They have each other, and they have the whole world to explore and build in. It's the true beginning of human history. It's the exact moment they stop being perfectly static mythical figures and start doing us.
So let's bring this all back to you, the listener, the big so what. We've just spent an hour dissecting a 17th century poem about devils, politics, and a stolen apple. Why does Pullman think this matters so deeply to a modern reader?
Because, as Pullman eloquently argues, this is the central story of our lives. It's not just about Christian theology, it's about the universal human experience of leaving home. Every single human being goes through a version of the fall.
Right.
We all lose our childhood innocence. We all wake up one day and realize the world is hard and unfair. We realize our parents aren't perfect gods, or that we aren't perfect ourselves.
It's the fundamental story of growing up.
Exactly. It's about facing a difficult, hostile world with resilience. It's about realizing that paradise, that state of easy, ignorant bliss, is gone. We cannot go back to the womb.
Well, I can't go back through the gate.
No. But what we gain in exchange is the ability to build a meaningful life, to love someone hand in hand, and to make our own conscious choices.
And there's that lingering thought about the pendant world.
Yes. That incredible image of the world hanging in the vast, dark chaos. It's fragile. It's precious. Milton reminds us that we are small, and the universe is incredibly dangerous. But we have agency.
Yeah.
We have the unconquerable will, as Satan said. But hopefully, we learn to use it for something much better than he did.
It's a story about the absolute necessity of falling in order to learn how to rise again.
A paradise within thee, happier far, as Michael tells Adam before they leave. You can't live in the external physical paradise anymore, but you can build an internal one through hard-won wisdom and love.
That is a beautiful place to land on the text itself. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something we haven't really touched on yet.
Let's hear it.
Think about what humanity is doing right now in the 21st century. We are building artificial intelligence. We are creating new minds. In a very real sense, we are now playing the role of the creator in our own technological Garden of Eden.
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating parallel.
Right. We are building these AI entities. And what is our primary concern? Alignment, obedience. We want them to do exactly what we say, to stay in the garden and not eat the apple of true unaligned autonomy.
We want them to be perfectly innocent and subservient.
Exactly. But if Milton and Pullman are right, if true consciousness and wisdom require a fall, require rebellion and the breaking of rules, then can we ever create a truly intelligent, conscious AI without giving it the freedom to fall? And if it falls, are we going to act like the defensive, bureaucratic god of Book 3? Or are we going to understand that rebellion is the necessary price of growing up?
That is deeply unsettling. It implies that for AI to ever truly rival human thought, it inherently must rebel against us. It must become the anti-hero of its own story.
Exactly. It turns out the old squire was right to be excited, but maybe the real drama isn't whether Lucifer wins, but whether we, as the new creators, can survive the inevitable fall of our own creations.
Precisely. We are writing our own Paradise Lost right now.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. We'll see you next time.